Welcome to the series where I test out money-making methods from the OSRS Wiki. Feel free to leave suggestions on which moneymaker you'd like to see next. And also, if you didn't already know, I have a nice playlist that I've created that has all of the previous moneymakers that I've already tried, so go ahead and check it out if you haven't already. With that being said, let's get into the video. So for today's moneymaker, I thought we'd go ahead and do making Ultracompost. And the reason why I chose to do this moneymaker today is because I actually did a farm run earlier and used my last Ultracompost. So instead of buying them, I figured we'd go ahead and make some. As you guys saw with my last video, I did in fact get the Vorky pet, so now I'm just trying to get some other pets, and it would be really cool to get the farming pet. Currently I've been just doing my fruit tree runs and planting seaweed and the hardwood trees in Fossil Island, so I'm not investing too much money into it, but I am doing those daily runs. Now the good thing about today's moneymaker is that there are virtually no requirements. Really the only thing that you will be needing is money to buy the super compost and the volcanic ash. There are no skill requirements, no quest requirements, so you are good to go. Of course though, with such low requirements, you are not going to be getting any XP for any skills, and the profit won't be the biggest from all of the moneymakers that we've tried out, but for how AFK it is and how low requirements are, I'd say it's pretty decent. Now as for the gear setup, really just bring your best fashionscape or wear nothing at all. You don't need to be wearing anything for this moneymaker since it is a bank standing moneymaker. And like all of these types of videos, we will be using the crafting guild to bank. The only things that you will be needing is the super compost and the volcanic ash. Now luckily the volcanic ash is a stackable item. At first I thought it was going to be similar to the making the fertilizer for the Hasidia's house, where you would use 14 saltpeter and 14 compost, but luckily it is stackable, so we will be making 27 of these ultra composts at a time. And if you haven't already noticed, yes, my graceful has changed color. I'll talk about that later on during the video. But now I can go ahead and show you some of the plugins that I was using to make this just a little bit easier. So here we are at the crafting guild where I normally do these types of moneymakers. I have the volcanic ash and the super compost in one tab together, and I'm using bank fillers so that we can easily bank all of the stuff that we are making. And whenever we bank, we won't accidentally bank our volcanic ash. Just make sure you remove the placeholder for the volcanic ash so that when you deposit your inventory, it doesn't go back into the bank. Honestly, these bank fillers aren't even really needed because as long as you are using the all option or the X option on 27, you can just bank from the inventory that way instead of depositing the inventory. As for some of the plugins that I've used, I used camera zoom to zoom a little bit closer to the bank as you see here, and I'm also using the screen markers plugin to highlight the deposit inventory button, which I didn't use. I thought I was going to use, but it was just easier to not use it. But if you want to use it, there it is. And those are pretty much all of the plugins that I used for this moneymaker. It is not complicated at all. The whole process of making Ultracompost is very simple. All you do is click on the volcanic ash and then on the Ultracompost, or the super compost I should say, and then you get the little thing in the chat box saying how many do you want to make. And then from there you just click all and then click on the Ultracompost item or picture in the middle and you will make them all. It takes around 40 seconds to make a full inventory, so it is pretty AFK. You can definitely get away with watching some videos or watching some Netflix while you're doing this moneymaker. Also, to speed up things a little bit, you can also use the spacebar to make all of the Ultracompost once the thing in the chat box appears to make all. Me personally, I wasn't using it because just recently my keyboard decided to kind of mess up. Every now and then my spacebar will stick and it won't come back up, so I just resorted to clicking for the entire video. Another similar shortcut you can use to the spacebar is the escape key whenever you are in the bank interface. That's what I use to close the interface instead of having to hover the cursor all the way to the X. It saves a tiny amount of time, but all of those times really adds up in the end, especially if you're considering doing this for many hours. Now, I'd say the only negative thing about this moneymaker is that the buy limits for super compost is limited to 600, so it did take me a few hours to get all of the super compost that I needed for this video. To get around this, you can just sit at the GE and ask people to buy it for you, but that doesn't always work. Sometimes you'll end up paying a little extra, and sometimes nobody at the GE will help you for fear of being scammed. So I'd say the best course of action is just to put an offer in the GE and let it sit there for a couple days, and since you're waiting so long, you could probably get away with putting in a good value to maximize your total profit, since the price of ash and super compost does jump around quite a bit. And if you don't feel like waiting for a couple days, you can always do it the Iron Man way and just make your own super compost and mine your own volcanic ash on Fossil Island. I actually already made a video of 1 hour of mining ash quite some time ago, so if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link. Now, thankfully, we were able to get an animation for making the Ultra Compost. I think on the last bank standing video that I did, the animation that we were doing for whatever moneymaker it was non-existent. There was no animation, so we didn't get to see that in the sped up footage. Usually my character will look pretty silly whenever he's doing the animation in the sped up mode. However, the animation for making Ultra Compost doesn't look that out of the ordinary, so yeah. Another thing about this moneymaker that you might consider negative is that it's kind of hard to see the Super Compost turn into Ultra Compost. This means that throughout the video, I was actually going a little too AFK sometimes because I didn't realize that I had stopped making Ultra Compost. If it wasn't for the animation, I probably would have AFK'd for even longer, so I am thankful that this does have an animation. But even with some of the delays and some of the missed opportunities to be making Ultra Compost, we still made more than what the wiki suggests. Now earlier I did mention how my graceful changed color, and that is because I finally decided to go to the Brimhaven Agility Dungeon and grind out 250 tickets. I'm not really sure what put me in the mood to go and grind out a new recolor, but I did it anyways. This took around 4 to 5 hours, I believe, and honestly it was pretty chill because at 99 agility you don't fail the obstacles anymore, so it was a pretty enjoyable time being here. I think the only damage that I took here was whenever I would run onto the saw blades, but I never even had to use the summer pies. I also had my Karamja gloves 4, so whenever I went to go get a ticket, I believe I had a 10% chance of receiving double tickets, so it went by even faster. And again, I'm not even sure why I went for this recolor. I guess I just got tired of looking at my white graceful, even though I love the look of it. And they're going to release black graceful soon, so again, it's like, why did I even do this? But I think it was more of a completionist thing. It was just something that I had on my list that I wanted to get done. And honestly, I think it actually looks pretty nice. I think it was worth the small little grind that I did. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite graceful color is. And with that being said, we have reached the end of our 1 hour of making Ultra Compost. We can now go ahead and withdraw all of our Ultra Compost and do a little price check to see how much money we have here in the 2,700 that we managed to make. And as you can see here, we have around 2.3 mil in Ultra Compost. Now, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I did say that I did this because I was in need of Ultra Compost. I used my last one on the farm run that I did earlier today, so I'm actually going to be keeping these Ultra Compost, but I will still go ahead and do the calculations of how much money we can make. I'll be using the OS Buddy actively traded price, and if you decide to do this moneymaker, you could probably get more money. I think I've seen these sell for around 900 GP each, so if you do make a bunch of them, I recommend putting them in the GE for a higher price and then just letting them sit there, because they will eventually sell. Even the OSRS Wiki says that due to its high demand, it often sells for more than the Grand Exchange guide price, so make sure you put it in there for a decent price. And before you even attempt doing this moneymaker, make sure you check the prices of the Super Compost, Volcanic Ash, and Ultra Compost just to make sure that it is still a viable money-making method. Because as with all these videos that I make, the price that you can get one day might be different than the next. But now we can go ahead and calculate the total profit that we made from the 1 hour. So we subtract the cost of supplies, which was 1,917,000 GP, from the total amount of money that we made, which was 2,357,100 GP, we get a grand total profit of 440,100 GP. Again, I'd say that this is not a bad amount of money for how AFK this method is, and for the no requirements that are needed. Of course, we didn't get any skill XP for this method, but here is the OSRS Wiki's estimation of how much you can make, compared with how much we managed to make. We did end up making 2,700 Ultra Compost, which I'd say is very good, considering that we did not do this tick perfectly, so you can easily make more than I did. I just want to say thanks for checking out the video, and if you enjoyed, please consider giving it a thumbs up and possibly a subscription. And as always, I will catch you guys in the next episode.